You have found the Redhead Family Therapy Guy and a Mic podcast, looking at mental health through a pop culture lens.
All right, welcome to the Redhead Family Therapy Guy
and a Mic
podcast. This is our interview series. We have Paige Swanson. She's amazing. She's fantastic. She's gorgeous.
Welcome, Paige.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And she is a aficionado of fashion. And so we're so glad to have her here with us today, Paige. Thanks for being gracious and jumping on with us today.
Oh, thrilled. And aficionado. I feel so important. My
Come
gosh.
on. I've seen you dress your husband. He doesn't come up with those clothes. I mean,
yeah, I've followed your Facebook page and I've seen you posting different things. I didn't know that you did fashion. So it was really interesting. I don't think I have any friends like that actively post fashion things. So I was showing my wife some things. So it was fun to see a little bit before actually meeting you.
Oh my gosh, I feel honored. I'm your only fashion friend. Like pressure on.
Maybe I have others. I just don't realize it.
I'm kidding.
They're closet fashion friends.
I'm not very strong on Facebook, but Instagram is my jam.
Oh,
so.
maybe it was
that's
Instagram
cool.
where I
Yeah.
saw you then.
Okay.
That's okay. Probably Instagram.
So give us the overview, because I know a little bit about what you do. And so it's a really interesting career. So tell us about how your fashion sense plays out in money-making ways for you.
Awesome. Great. I'm a fashion stylist and a wardrobe director. And I have worked for large companies with like a full-time job in the past, but right now I'm on contract and I just kind of bounce around, run my own fashion company and take whatever jobs I want. And it's super fun. I do film, videos, commercials, and
Oh, cool.
just kind of pick and choose what I want to be involved in. It's pretty awesome.
What does wardrobe director mean? Like, what is that?
You decides what people wear. Look, Michael, you shouldn't be wearing that t-shirt. What's that hat? Why you
I
got
love
that
it. Actually, your t-shirt and your background says so much about you. I feel like you just told me a whole story, like without even talking. So I feel like I know you already. Wardrobe director is usually I have a team on a film and we decide all looks and styles and just the overall vibe and message that we're wanting to send out. And I'm really big on messaging and connecting. It's a little bit harder on films, but connecting people with their message and using the tool of fashion to speak that out. And
Well, that's cool.
So, yeah.
This is really interesting because I really know nothing about fashion, and I get compliments, or maybe comments is a better term. I get a lot of comments about some of the things
I comment
wear,
all the time.
I have no idea what I'm doing. So how do you, like, is there schooling or do you have to do like continuing education? Like, how do you know what makes sense and what doesn't? Because it's just completely foreign.
You can't teach what Paige has. Come on.
Yeah, right? No. Yeah, there definitely is schooling. There's a lot of high-end fashion schooling out there where you just learn the basics of everything, textiles and silhouettes and all of the just technical stuff. As far as knowing like what goes with what and pairing, I feel like I have a natural gift, but I do think anyone can learn it. I've strengthened it over the years and really challenged myself to figure out how I can do things faster, better, quicker, tell a stronger message, be bold or be subtle. And I'm really honed in on that. And so that's taken me some years to refine, but I think anyone can learn it. And I love it. It is so joyful for me. I literally love everything that I do.
So tell me what about matching people up with message and clothes? What about that brings you joy? Because some could say, which I don't think you are, that's I don't want to say shallow, but like fashion gets a certain kind of message, particularly in like our faith community, it can, of like being downplayed or seen as worldly or something like that. But what about it for you is joyful or brings you so much joy?
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I feel like this is a conversation throughout my whole career of everyone just kind of has this, well, most people have this view of, it's vain or it's
that was the word I was looking for. Yeah.
And there's not a lot of meaning in fashion, which that's true. Both exist. There's not a lot of meaning in fashion, but I see a lot of meaning in fashion. And so if I were to pull from my childhood, when I was a teenager, I grew up in San Diego, and right, yeah,
yes,
I know my heart is missing the beach so much these days during the winter. But I also grew up thrifting. We didn't have a ton of money, so I had to learn the art of thrifting and being really frugal. And I learned really early on that I could communicate who I was through what I wore even more than verbally. And I'm really outgoing and social, and I just really latched onto that as a teenager. Like I could walk into a room, make connections, make relationships all through what I was wearing. And so I utilized that a lot, and I've kind of built my whole career around that. So now when I dress CEOs or people on stages in front of large audiences, I really quickly try to get to know who they are. I need to hone in on their personality, what they're about, what they're wanting to project. Even if they haven't identified that, I try and identify that.
So when you're doing this and supporting somebody, you're not just focused on this idea of like looking so good. You're really trying to get them to kind of send a message that represents who they are, like an honest, kind of authentic, connected message. It sounds
100%. Yeah. When you're sitting in an audience, you guys, don't you feel like you're connected to the person speaking when you latch onto something? Like Mike, if you were speaking in a Super Mario shirt on stage, I feel like every teenager would be like, I love this guy. He loves Super Mario. He totally gets me. Like there's this whole script that follows where you break down a wall or a barrier. And so that's what I try and do with people with clothing.
Cool. So then the fashion, if I'm understanding, fashion is an extension of personality. So it's an extension of understanding and getting to know someone. So it's like a nonverbal cue in our world. Is that kind of what I'm
Absolutely.
hearing?
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's been times in my life where I've been like in a city and I'll see a woman and she's wearing this like fantastic dress, and I can tell that she put intention behind what she was wearing that day. A lot of what I do comes down to intention and purpose, and I'll go up and meet her and I'll be like, who are you? I need to know you. And just because I have no fear doing that, but I feel like even people who aren't doing the action, they're feeling that as they walk by and they're like, do I know that person? I'm intrigued with that person. Why is that person wearing that? It just opens up communication and relationships. And I love that is where I hit it. Like every time I get a job, I try and hit that. What am I trying to communicate?
So I love I love how wholesome you are in that approach, Paige. It's so cool.
So someone who maybe is, I guess, shy, or it's hard for them maybe to be social or to be outgoing. Are there tips or tricks that they could use with their fashion that would enable them to maybe open a door that would make communication or socializing with others easier?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just keep using like being bold or loud with your clothing, but a lot of people don't want to stand out. They would rather blend in or not be noticed, but also want to be pulled together for themselves. So I'll use my husband as an example. John knows my husband.
Fantastic.
He teaches seminary for the LDS Church, and he struggles with depression and anxiety. And there's lots of days where he doesn't want to get up and go teach, and he's really having a hard time. And we have, in the last couple of years, really honed in on if he has a great outfit to put on, it's one less thing that he has to stress about. And it's also a great communicator with his colleagues or with the students. Like the other day, he was wearing kind of a reddish suit. From afar, it looks like a pink suit, which a lot of people would think that was just crazy. But he said so many people came up to him and was like, what's up with this suit? It just like opened up conversation. So then it lessened his anxiity.
So then, then it lessened his anxiety. What does it do for his mood also? So if he's feeling down or depressed,
that's what I was thinking.
Have you asked him, does it help him feel more energetic or uplifted? Like, does it give him motivation to kind of get out when he's feeling,
absolutely,
I don't want to go today?
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed just, we haven't like totally analyzed this out like completely where I know exactly what he's thinking, but I've noticed that if we pick out an outfit the night before, he's totally good to go to wake up. He knows he's going to feel awesome. He knows he's got something to wear. He knows that he can feel confident and not have to worry about that. So I think it kind of plays into all of that.
When I feel fashioned up I feel definitely sharper. I definitely feel like
well, and I feel like
crisper.
even kind of, just to a more basic sense, it makes sense that, we often recommend take a shower and get dressed, right?
Mhm.
If you can just take a shower, get
Cold
dressed,
shower if you're awesome.
brush your teeth. And I think that makes sense to me, that would help you get going. And that's a really neat concept, that not only just take a shower, get dressed, but maybe choose something that makes you happy or excited, or kind of gets an emotional response out of you. And that can help pull you out of that funk. And
For sure. I feel like we get this wrong a lot just because we've been told how to think about fashion. But I really believe that your clothing in your closet should serve you, not the other way around. We're kind of taught the other way around, that we serve clothes, or we serve the industry.
Yeah, the whole label.
Yeah, exactly. So if you think of it that way, and you kind of shift your perspective, that are my clothes serving me? Are they helping me today with my mood? Really, I get dressed every day for me. I'm not trying to, get anyone else's attention or whatever. I'm just trying to get dressed for me and express who I am. And so if you shift that a little bit from what we've been taught throughout our lives, then your closet starts to become this like joyful experience, rather than a stressful experience of, I have nothing to wear, nothing represents me, this is all crap. Like, we all think that when we walk into our closet, but if you really are intentional, literally every piece of my closet, if it is not adding to my life, I don't want it in there. It's taking up real estate.
I have a question for you about myself.
Okay, let's do it. I'm excited.
So I have always been the type of person that I'll have like one or two things I wear, and I just wear them out. Like, I wear them until they're gone. And my wife's like, oh my goodness, you need new clothes. You're not going out on a date with me in that.
Yeah.
And I've just been that way since I was a kid. So in my closet, I really don't have, like, my section of the closet is tiny. What does that mean about me? Like, is that a fashion sense, or is there something with me that just doesn't, like, what does that mean about me? I've always wondered, because I know there are other people like me, but for the most part, most of my friends, like John, dresses very nicely. Like, he always has different
I'm rocking
things.
it.
Always buying shirts.
I'm cold.
Oh my gosh, you have merch. I didn't know you had merch. I want some of that. That's fantastic. I'm so impressed.
I'm cold, and so I and we have like a work meeting right after this, so I can't represent myself like I want to in the podcast, because I don't have to change. Michael's gonna do a fast change, but I didn't want to.
I'll throw on one of my two work shirts.
So let me get this straight. You want me to psychoanalyze you?
I do. I'm so curious.
Based on your clothes.
I do. I want it, because I'm really curious from your perspective.
Yeah.
You have an understanding that I really don't. And I just get so curious about new things. And so I'm wondering, what does that mean? Is, like, if you saw my closet and you saw I have 2 work shirts, I have a pair of work pants I also use for church. I don't
a lot of sweatpants.
I'm doing a lot of Zoom, so I don't really. I have 1 pair of sweats that I wear. I have a couple pairs of shorts.
I just has those toe shoes.
I just wash them. I don't care.
Those toe shoes.
I do wear sandals a lot. That
John's
with socks
outing
on.
you.
I wear socks with my sandals, and
he wears the cycling hat a lot.
I do wear hats all the time because I shave my head. So I shave my head. So I always have this hat, or I have like what are those? The hats I know why I do, because my derby growing up, my dad always wore derby hats or cycling hats. So
those
just
are cool.
have.
I like derby.
So I know the hat thing. But I have more hats. I have more variety in hats than I do in clothes. And I probably only have maybe 6 different hats.
Okay.
So that gives you an idea. And then I have lots of underwear.
Okay. So
that's all the same color.
I literally don't know you. So this will be fun. I didn't stalk you on social media. I probably should have before this.
You would have just seen a bunch of toys. Just lots of toys.
Okay. So that's really interesting though. That was my first impression when I got on this, that you're intrigued with merchandise and toys and maybe comic stuff.
Big kid. That's all you need to know, is he's silly and a big kid. Yep.
So my first thought would be that you value comfort. So comfort is a big thing for you. And you also value the simplicity of the closet. So it makes me think of Steve Jobs. he literally wore the same thing every day because he didn't want to make the decision every morning of what do I have to wear.
Yes.
So he needed that consistency. A lot of men think like this. A lot of men that I've worked with, you're totally normal. This is very, very normal. One thing that I would suggest.
Got that part wrong. I'm sorry, Paige. You missed that one. You're awesome.
One thing I would suggest for you though, if you fall in love with something, like let's say, I just keep using this shirt you're wearing, the Super Mario shirt. If you fall in love with that, buy multiples.
Okay.
So then you've got it. So then your favorite item isn't ruined and gone and lost forever. I know a lot of men, especially with like church clothes, if you find pants that you love, buy 3 of them. So then you've got, I'm a minimalist, so you don't need a ton of it, but as long as you have that option in multiple kinds, that'll really simplify your life.
I do have a pair of
great.
dress pants that I found that are fantastic, and I wish I would have bought 3.
Isn't that the worst? You're like, I need this.
They're
and I can't find
super
it.
comfy. They're like these sporty kind of dressy pants that I got somewhere, and they're just, man, they're just great. I really like them.
Oh, I love that. Another thing, Mike, real quick, is you have a really fun personality. So your hats
Thanks.
and your t-shirts, I'm assuming you have more like what you're wearing, and your socks with your sandals, like you've been outed, like own all of that. That feels really fun. It feels approachable to me. Yeah. So what I'm saying is you don't need to change anything at all. Like you're really authentic and
except for date night. Date night, I might need to stretch a little bit.
Gotta saucy it up
Heather has
for the lady.
Heather's really easygoing, to be honest. I'm teasing a little bit. She doesn't make many comments, but I have had in our marriage probably 1 or 2 comments where she's like, maybe a different shirt, one that doesn't have a hole in it, or because I don't think about fashion that way. So it's really, I love talking about this because it's so interesting.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my question in the beginning, was kind of like, is this something, are there like rules or is this just intuition? It's so interesting.
You're awesome in fashion if the rules are just you. Like if it works for you and you own it. That's what the cool kids always did. Like
Amen.
I would say the one of my kids that has this figured out, but he doesn't know it, is Emmanuel. He totally just represents himself with his, like when he did yellow hair for a while,
he does like yellow
or whatever. He totally like wants to, or he wore just like goggles like on his head.
I love it.
Months, just because he like was into science.
Like ski goggles or
they were like they were like
safety
welder
goggles.
Yeah, they were like
welder
glasses. It was
that
great.
movie from the 90s. Remember Can't Hardly Wait? Seth Green. He always had
yeah.
goggles on. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So
And then
funny.
he wore like a fedora for like a year. And it was
So
like nobody could have made that work, but he did.
Yeah. So generally speaking, I'm a little bit of a rebel. I don't love to follow rules. And I hate it when people are like, oh, you can't mix navy with black. Well, who said? I don't understand. Or, the basic, you can't wear white after Labor Day. That's all crap to me. Do whatever you want, whatever you're feeling that day. Like, let's dress you. We don't have to follow rules. So.
Well, that's awesome.
I like it.
Can you tell my employer this so that I can
Dress code.
Throw in a beard provision that can be allowed as well.
Shorts and sandals and a t-shirt.
Her husband is under the same provisions as we are. So actually, we're
a little more lax. Yeah, we've had some changes in the last couple of years.
That's right. It's been a blessing. So Paige, we jumped right into what you do, and that's such a fun thing to learn about. Tell us about you, though. So tell us more about you. You said you were from San Diego.
Yep.
I know that you're a mom. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, born and raised San Diego. I'm a beach girl. Utah's quite literally killing my spirit. I'm stuck in the middle.
Come to Tennessee.
I know. Tennessee
Better
has
here.
Beautiful lakes too. I remember playing on the lakes.
And it's a closer ride to a beach from here than Utah. So.
Yeah, I actually love Tennessee. It's so beautiful. Let's see. Yeah, I'm a mom of 3, and we love sports. We're really into pickleball right now. We pretty much play every night.
Cool.
Yeah.
How old are your kiddos?
I've got 16, 14, and 9.
Awesome.
Is he or she of the 16 driving?
Yes. Yep. Driving, and we're in the thick of it. And Scott and I were made for teenagers, and I'm just loving every day. So it's pretty fun.
Cool.
I actually kind of hate when teenagers get such a bad rap from parents, like, it's the worst. And I'm like, no, it's the best. They can be them. And we've got other adults in the house. And anyway, so
so as the fashion teenage mom, do you let them dress themselves, or do you highly influence how they put themselves together?
Well, I would be a terrible mom if I didn't.
How good of a mom are you?
No, I 100% let them dress themselves. I try and let them practice. I mean, my teenage years were so important to me, figuring out who I was and expressing that. And so I want them to go through a similar process of figuring out who they are, what they want to say, where they, what they're interested in. And so I very much try and let them do their own thing, and I try and support that. So
that's cool.
Yeah, pretty fun. Anyway, so we're very sporty as a family, and we just love to have fun. We play a lot of games, and I personally love houseplants. They bring me so much joy. I swear I'm turning into a cute old lady with a ton of houseplants. And let's see what else.
We compliment you in the houseplant industry. We have tons of growing. My wife is magical when it comes to
I love
things.
that. We'll have to chat with her.
She has so much talent when it comes to growing things.
Yeah, it's really so fulfilling.
Do you have any hobbies besides, houseplants, I'm sure is a hobby, but do you have any other hobbies that you enjoy all my time doing?
Houseplants take up all my time. Yeah. I swim often. That's kind of my thing right now. I feel like the water is very therapeutic. Diving into water can really help me in my mental health. And so I swim a lot. And let's see, what else? I love snowboarding. I love surfing. I love having a lot of fun. We love comedians. I feel like every night as a family, we're like, what comedian can we watch? Or what funny videos can we watch as a family? So
are you guys dry bar comedy fans?
Yes, we love dry bar. Yeah.
They're coming to Nashville in a couple weeks.
Are they? Are you guys going to go?
I hadn't talked to my wife about it. I was going to try to surprise her, but she's going to be outed now because she listens to the podcast a lot. She's a big fan, but yeah, I think we are. It's in March and it looks great. So I'm
so
excited.
Fun. Yeah, I've actually been thinking lately. I'm like, maybe I should hit up the comedic world because they just bring me so much joy, and a lot of comedians, it's like, I've noticed it's almost kind of cool to not care about what you're wearing on stage. Whereas some of the comedians that Nate Bargatze, I don't know if you know Nate Bargatze, but I can tell
he's from Tennessee.
Yeah, he is from Tennessee. He's so great, and he's clean and great, but I can tell he's gotten a stylist in the last few years. I mean, he's really sharpened up his game. And so I've been daydreaming about getting some comedians on my list.
That'd be fun. You need to help Joe Rogan out. He doesn't ever seem like he fits in what he wears.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I have questions for you guys. I would love to know. So you guys work together. Yeah.
I'm going to turn the tables on us here, Mike. I don't know.
So you guys work together. I've gathered that.
Yep. We work in the same division of our company.
Yeah, same organization.
Do you do specific therapy? Are you honed in on something specific? What is that?
Well, our population is pretty diverse. It's mainly our faith community, but we get a lot of diversity within there. You know what I mean? My favorite thing to do is couples. I love working with couples, and I really enjoy individuals that are struggling with addiction. Those are my two go-to, but we serve a wide swath.
Yeah, it's pretty general. I mean, we do a bunch of different, or we use a bunch of different models. I like using ACT, acceptance commitment therapy, often. I use EFT, emotionally focused therapy, often. And then, of course, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And then I feel like we've been trained a little bit in probably just about any model.
General models, yeah.
And then therapists specializing in specific models is harder in our work because we don't have specific population focuses. We get just the whole gambit.
Yeah.
So
and most therapists,
broad in general.
Most therapists tend to be pretty eclectic anyway. I find it rare that a therapist is super loyal to one particular intervention style. Some are, and there are some graduate programs that might focus around certain intervention styles, but it's not typical. Usually therapists cultivate an integrated, intervention style that kind of fits personality, because, relationship is one of the biggest parts of a therapeutic setting. And so, the therapist really is the tool, and different personality types. Like I'm a little bit more of a confrontational, aggressive, pokey, therapeutic model. That's just kind of my personality. And so, like if in marriage and family therapy, it's all systemic theory based, but then there are these models that crept up when family therapy became its own discipline, like in the 60s and 70s. And I did this research study, and a bunch of those models really were kind of organized around the personality style of the theorist of the model. So like contextual family therapy was built around this guy Naj, and then there was this guy Bowens for Bowenian therapy, who did real kind of multi-generational psychoeducational. And then there was this lady, Virginia Satir, and she was really EFT and super like relationship. And she would, like, when you'd watch the videos, she'd get like knee to knee with the clients, which is like nothing, that's not my vibe, getting all kind of drippy and emotional. And so a lot of models, at least in my background, will kind of be organized. And I think that around a personality type. And I think that got me thinking about, how am I approaching therapy? I also got trained at Drexel University in person as a therapist. So there's a lot of reflection and being aware of what's coming up for you. Is that information that's relative, or is that about you, and trying to differentiate between the two and kind of really use yourself? So Michael and I have different therapeutic backgrounds. I'm at LMFT and Michael's in LCSW.
Very cool. You guys love what you do?
Yeah, it's
sure
fun.
Do.
Just like any job, it has its challenges. But it's fun to, I think it's fun to work with people. I think the hardest thing about the job is you don't always get to see or hear where things end up.
Oh, got it. You don't
so you don't have a lot of closure in the mental health field, which I think can be tough sometimes, because hearing those success stories really can lift you up. And help you keep going. And sometimes you just hear, or you just keep seeing a lot of issues going on, right? And not a lot of the success and movement forward. And I think that's probably the hardest part, the part that probably burns me out the most at times.
That makes sense.
Which is also part of why we jumped into this podcast, because we've gained a lot of experience and insight, and so it's a way to talk about those things through something we love, which is movies and a lot of 80s and 90s culture or whatever. And so we thought it would be fun. It kind of evolved. We just wanted to talk and thought it would be fun, because Michael and I talk a ton and always have fun talking. So we're like, hey, well, we should, it was Michael kind of pushed along. He's like, hey, we should do this. And
first I wanted to do a mental health podcast on mental health and nutrition. And I sent John a link to a podcast, and I was like, oh, this nutrition concept's really cool. We should do a podcast. And then I don't know how John and I just start talking, and it's like a million things at once. And then it became this, and this is, I think, I love it. It's so much fun to talk about just things.
Well, John's so easy to talk to just in general. I feel like we randomly met through Alicia, and I felt like we've all been talking since. So it's so fun to chat with you.
I always have a lot to say.
I have one more question. I'm so sorry.
Awesome. Go for it.
Jump in.
This is fun.
Okay. I'm intrigued. I would love to ask you guys a million questions on what it's like to be a therapist. But when you have clients come in, do you feel like pretty early on you can identify, okay, they need help, or they just need to be listened to, or like, can you quickly categorize what you need to do for this human, or is it like a long game, and does that surprise you sometimes? Like, where are you at on that when new clients come in?
I think that's a talent that you definitely develop the longer you're a therapist. But I think for me, I constantly am assessing is this the right track? Is this what's going on? Is this what this person needs? And I'll ask too. I'm very direct in that way. And just asking at the end of each session, kind of what was helpful, what wasn't helpful. Or do we need to go in a different direction? But I would say, yeah, when you meet with enough people, I mean, John and I have been doing this for 15 plus years. When you do that many thousands of sessions, it gets to the point where we call it empathic conjecture, but you can conjecture what's going on. So pretty easily I can do it. Now, I will say this, outside of work, I don't feel like I do that at all. Like, I don't feel like I analyze people. I'm just Michael outside of work, just this kind of likes to have fun, joke around, goofy guy. But in work, yeah, I definitely could.
So I would say about 4 years ago, I finally turned that off. Like for me, it was so intuitive, or is so intuitive. I would naturally just be reading, and I still do. Like, I constantly am aware, or I think tuning into, is somebody having a good day, is somebody not having a good day. I automatically can tell if people are comfortable or uncomfortable in situations, and when they are, I just naturally want to try to help people feel more comfortable in social situations. And so that kind of doesn't shut off for me. Another thing that I can't help but always notice is how well married couples are doing. When I see couples together, I can instantly kind of vibe if they're close but have just had a bad day, or if they're just not very close, or I just kind of can't help it. So there's a part of me that started to turn it off, and I'm not as aware. But yeah, I think like Michael said, when people come in, you do empathically conjecture, just because we've been doing it so long, and there's so many things that are pretty consistent, and that's tough, because I don't ever want to give somebody the experience that they're not being heard or listened to. And I sometimes, because I'm pretty confrontational, and jump in really quick. And so the place where I fall off, or people I think probably have a bad experience with me sometimes, is that I jump the gun, and I might be onto something, but they're like, how can you know? I haven't even told you anything, so you don't know me. Which I always feel bad about, because I care. I just care, and I'm excited, and I think they think that I haven't heard or listened. So yeah, it really is something you become really attuned to,
and I think that's why empathic conjecture is such an important tool, because it's a guess. So oftentimes when I'm conjecturing, I'll say, I wonder if it feels like this. I feel that oftentimes. What do you think? So it's not telling them. Although in my mind, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I think I know what's going on, but I don't ever say that, right? Because there are plenty of times where I don't know what's going on.
That's true.
And so that conjecture is really a soft, gentle approach to, hey, could it be this?
It's always wonderful when we have a client that it's not any of the things that we empathically conjecture.
Then you have to be super creative, because at that point, really at some point, you're like 99% okay, it's this, but the person isn't in a place where they can accept or get there, because I think they don't want to be vulnerable. I think that denial or shame or the denial or resistance is just shame and really feeling a place of pain and
shame. And shame is the overarching thing for all humans, right? Totally. The idea of that, because of I look this way, or have this failure, or come from this background, you're not gonna like me. I'm not gonna be welcomed into your in-group. And we all have a dynamic, visceral reaction to that, because we're programmed and organized to be cooperative, and we need it.
Our basic needs are acceptance.
Absolutely.
And so shame is the complete opposite to that. I mean, it really pulls us away from feeling accepted and loved.
I was just listening to Brene Brown about her new book. Have you read her new book?
I haven't read her new one yet.
I've seen it though.
We're starting, Scott and I, my husband, we're starting it this week. We're going to read it together. But I was listening to her on a podcast, and man, her conversations around shame and how it can like overtake every angle of your life is just so fascinating to me. And how
she's got that figured out.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
She's got it nailed down.
It's funny. I'm really glad you guys are, this has actually been really good for me because I've been laughing over the years as just laughing to myself, not at people, that when I meet with clients and they'll like verbally say things to me, like, my favorite color is yellow and I really love A, B, C, or D. And then I get into their closet, which is funny. I named it closet therapy. I have no right to say that, but that's what I call it. Closet therapy.
You can call it.
Yeah. There's just this huge disconnect of, wait, they just,
why don't you have anything yellow?
There's not one yellow thing or like I've noticed with a lot of humans that I work with that there's this like disconnect or
well, because they're probably trying to fit themselves into a box versus allowing themselves to really wear what they want to wear that represents them, or they're scared to because what will the perceptions be, and there'll be rejection or whatever.
Exactly.
Well, and I think that's a great segue into Paige's movie also, because I feel like that's kind of one of the themes is once that freedom is felt, actualized, so much change happens, right? When she's not keeping herself in a box. But I won't say too much yet, but I just
this is a good timing. So Paige, what was it about Penelope that you had to talk about this or wanted to talk about this with us? What was it about this movie?
I've been dying to know your guys' thoughts on all of this. It's so funny. By the way, this was one of the hardest things I've had to do in a really long time is pick one movie. I want to talk about 20 movies with you guys.
We do too. You can come back.
It is hard. It is very hard to pick.
I mean, I'm so jealous that you guys get to sit and talk about movies because I just love analyzing movies and characters.
Hopefully you enjoy listening to us talk about movies.
I do. I've loved your podcast. It's been really fun. And I love all the retro, 80s and 90s that you've been rocking. So anyway, this was very hard for me to pick Penelope, although I do love it. It's one of my all-time favorites. Yeah. However, I will say one of these days, someone needs to conquer Gladiator. I should have done Gladiator. I should have done
Gladiator's a good one.
Castaway. I mean, there's just so many. After I had told you what movie I wanted to chat out with you.
Buyer's remorse.
I totally had buyer's remorse. I almost texted you yesterday and was like, you know what? Let's scratch Penelope and let's do, I keep coming back to Gladiator, but I named my son Maximus after Gladiator.
That's cool. That is man, cool. Maybe we should have done we should have
I know.
Penelope's a great show though. So tell us, what was it about Penelope that jumped first?
There's so many things about Penelope. Well, first I'll just start with the visual. I think the production designer just did such a beautiful job. It was so playful and whimsical and not hard.
I loved her living space. I really like. I was like, well, somebody that's shut in, they did a great job. Like, she got this open, she's got this swing, like all of it. I thought was like a fun place, even though it had like a feminine spin on it. I thought that would be a fun place to be.
Agreed.
For as horrible as her mom was, they at least got that right.
Right, I know.
I always loved when she actually gets out of the house, right, and she wears the scarf.
Yeah.
Ever since, this movie's probably close. I think it's close to 20 years old. But when it first came out, I always loved the scarf. I don't know why.
I'm a scarf guy.
I don't know if it's because it's so colorful, but I feel like the outfit she wears when she goes out just always was appealing to me. I really liked it.
I totally agree. Her outfit, what they paired together, like what was on the walls, just all the textures and colors. And they did this really interesting thing where they mixed old with new. So there's a lot of vintage and then and they kind of did it throughout the whole story, not just visually. It was, like the
it's like, what time period is this?
Right?
It's hard to
pick.
I love the theater that Jonathan ended up in, that was just such, I thought to myself, that would be a cool place. I thought, Michael, we should sit there and record a podcast together. Like that's just like a cool space.
One day.
So fun. So it was visually so beautiful. I remember 20 years ago watching it thinking, gosh, who made all these fashion decisions and who was layering like stripes and polka dots? And it was just really fun for my soul to watch. And then, and then I love the cast. I just adore.
Yeah, it's a great cast.
Yeah, all the cast. It was so interesting that they got all those people in the movie. And then I know at first glance it kind of just feels like a fairy tale and lighthearted, but I do feel like there's some
deep message.
really deep, messages, which of course I feel like the main message is radical acceptance. And I'm a little annoyed that she didn't get to keep her nose or have the option of keeping her nose, because she had accepted herself. And so I watched it back, I think last week, since we were going to talk about it. And I was like, oh, dang, why didn't she keep her nose? But I love radical acceptance. I feel like every human has to go through that at some point.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that in the movie they portray after she loses her nose, or she doesn't lose her nose, right? Her nose is transformed.
Taken away.
It's interesting that they portray a sense of loss.
Yeah,
right? You get that strong, this sense of loss. She's lost part of her identity, and she even makes a comment at one point like, "I liked who I was."
Right.
Yeah.
And this was after the fact. So really interesting that they bring that in.
Yeah, I think metaphorically it works that she loses the nose, because the point is, I think this is one of the things I see about that is I see myself as ugly, but once you accept all the aspects of who you are, then it's not ugly. So I think metaphorically it works that it disappears, because that's the point. The point is like, oh, I feel like a pig, I feel gross, I feel ugly, I feel like I don't fit in. And I think that that's really the beautiful message of the movie. And the thing that, it was really hard for me, though I know it's a comedy and funny, it was really hard for me not to viscerally hate the mother, like hate the mother. And my daughter kept commenting on it. My daughter was like, dude, that mother, she is awful. She's so terrible. She's like, everything that comes out of her mouth is literally the wrong thing to say.
So I would love to chat that out with you, because this last time when I watched it, I noticed something new that I hadn't before. And of course we love Catherine O'Hare, and this
she's fantastic.
Before she did Schitt's Creek, so I feel like I saw some of her Schitt's Creek character
totally
which was so fascinating to me. But I thought the principle of oh gosh, how do I even want to say this? That our parents can feed us lies and we can believe them. And so I thought that principle was so fascinating, how, and we as viewers, we were believing that her pig face was ugly, when really I feel like there's a point in the movie where you're like, I love her face, like we accept it too, but we're fed lies by adults, and we have to
many
those lies, and
so many
that can really like mess you up. And so that was a really big storyline for me last time I watched, and it hurt my heart so much.
I had multiple times in watching this where I really was emotional and having tears, and I felt like at different points in the movie, I was connecting with a few of the characters and just feeling so much pain. And even with Catherine O'Hare's character, with the mom, feeling pain, feeling, oh man, she must feel sadness. Feel aloneness, shame. Feel inadequacy.
So much shame.
And I felt like Catherine O'Hare did such a wonderful job of portraying how painful. And for me, yes, there were certain comments she made that I'm just like, oh my goodness. But at the same time, there was moments where I just felt pain. I felt sadness, and I felt like I connected with her, seeing that there's things I do as a parent to where I'm like, oh,
that's what
I meant.
I think that's
not what I'm intending.
Yeah, I think that's the part that why it was so visceral, like that I became aware. I'm like, oh, I'm becoming aware of this because I hate the fact that I'm guilty of this in some like subtle fashions. Do you know what I mean?
And the theme that I got from the mom was, this idea of, as parents, we protect, right? We want to protect, we want to help, but in our anxiety and fear of protecting our children, what damage might we
goodness
be doing?
Gracious, yeah,
and that's
so
painful.
Much damage.
Like that
Agreed.
was
so much
me,
damage.
Really,
it's. I'm with you. I get really emotional during it, and I was trying to be aware of what chord is this striking for me, because it's pulling on some sort of deep emotion,
right.
And specifically with the mom scenario, I see it all the time. Like, even though her character is so extreme, I see it. Just a couple weeks ago, I was at Nordstrom's Rack shopping, And in the dressing room, I heard a mom talking to her teenage daughter in another dressing room.
Oh.
And she was like, I will buy you this if you commit to losing weight over the next few weeks. So then, I almost intervened, like, what the hell is happening
are you
here, you know?
to your child?
So I have to like gauge myself. So then they come out and the girl is easily a 0. Like she's small. So she probably has an eating disorder already. And I just wanted to grab that girl and hug her
and be like, you're gorgeous, stop.
Well,
right?
one of
And
the
so-
my mind goes to, I agree with 100% what you're saying. You know, I would feel very sad and emotional for that young lady, but I just think about the mom.
I know.
What pain you must be in to say that to someone. I mean, she must love her daughter.
Yeah, for sure.
What trauma has she experienced in her life that she feels like she has to say those things to her daughter to protect her daughter?
Well,
like those are comments that are coming from a place of, I want to protect you.
And that pain is so great that she's not even aware of how emotionally damaging the things that she's saying is. Yeah, it's totally true.
Well, and how often do we do that though as parents? I'll say something to my girls because I'm so scared. I want them to be safe and I want them to be okay. And yet afterwards, I'm like, dude, I just shamed the crap out of my girl. Like, what am I doing? Why?
It's awful. Well, and I love the metaphor of like, yeah, my mom in her, you know, in her attempt to protect me, she faked my death. You know what I mean? Like, how metaphoric is that? How
that beginning
is that?
like 10 minutes, but some of the things that she says, holy cow, it's just.
But I want to slow this down for a minute, right? Because this is so ironically metaphoric of everything the mom is doing is killed the daughter. Like she's emotionally killed the daughter by all of this narcissistic overprotection and projection of how it reflects on her as a person. You know, I mean, the thing that really cringed me, that really like was like a knife to my heart, was when the mom, like, and it was really like, it was done playfully and jokingly, but when the mom's like, well, you're not you, and she's like, I know, mother, I'm not me. I'm like, what? There's no like more terrible thing you can say to a kid.
I know.
And it was just so interesting. And it's interesting too, in that moment, that the daughter was mothering the mother, you know, and trying to help her feel better, and was more emotionally mature than her mother in that moment, and was able to be gracious towards her mother, even though her mother's so incredibly
how often
tyrannically narcissistic.
Working with like parents, or you're working with kiddos and you get the parents in, how often is it that there's really an education component with the parents to helping them understand that the language and the things they're saying are shaming and not helping? And I think about that in our lives. I think we have, you know, there's generational trauma everywhere. And I think that manifests oftentimes in our individual families through shame, right? Saying shaming phrases or shaming comments, and we just don't realize it. We're saying it in a way that we're trying to protect or help, but it is just tearing down.
Agreed.
There was a point that I really got emotional where Penelope was with, I can't remember is it Max? Is that his?
Well, that's his name that he says, and then it's actually John or Jonathan or Johnny or something.
So she's with Max and he's looking through the mirror. He can't see her, of course. It's a two-way mirror. He's looking through, and she looks down.
Yes.
And I just start crying because I'm like, how often in life do we feel, and it makes me emotional, how often in life do we feel, and those that we work with feel like we're not worth looking at? We're not worth loving. And how much pain do we cause ourselves? And it was just a really powerful moment in the movie, and it was quick, right? It was a really quick moment. But there were some really powerful moments in this movie that just touched me and made me want to just really strive to be a more loving and kind person.
Agreed. Thank you. That's so beautiful. I feel like I'm still trying to like work through how to talk about this on social media. And so I don't have all the right words just yet, but I feel like it applies so perfectly to today, where sometimes I feel like we're living in the Capitol from Hunger Games.
Totally.
Because everyone's like, it's so common that everyone's messing with their faces surgically. And I just,
it's so over the top.
It's
too.
so over the top.
So over the top. It cringes me. It cringes me so much. It really,
I know.
And I instantly think that it's so unattractive. It's like, you can't even be yourself. You know, I feel sad.
Well, I feel sad. Yeah, I feel sadness. I feel pain. Like, I just want to hug, right? I want to reach out and hug and say, you're awesome.
I feel bad because it's so tricky to talk about it, because I am not here to add
judge or
judge on top of what people are doing to their bodies and changing and everything. So I'm not angry with the people. I get really angry, and I adamantly am against the system that is telling women that they have to. And so even to this day, I have like people messaging me. I got a message a couple weeks ago that was like, you need Botox in your face. So let's do here, and here. So it's like unsolicited. They're trying to tell me what's wrong with my face. And I just want nothing to do with it. And I so badly want to grab, everyone that I feel like you can instantly tell when they get it done. And I don't know why they're thinking that they can fool anyone that they're getting it done. But I have like young women messaging me, tell me why I shouldn't get Botox today. I'm like, you're 19. What is happening here? So then I feel this responsibility of, I need to be a loud voice, even though people disagree with me on social media. I need to have a voice of, you don't have to do this. This is not required to
watch Penelope
or be looked at. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's why Penelope really hits core in my heart.
It's complicated too, because the whole nature of communication and the way that this rising generation since 2000 is relating to image and the story of who they are. We don't know how to deal with this. Like, we don't know the effects of it. We don't know. I mean, I can't imagine being 15 and trying to negotiate my sense of identity with social media. It was hard enough. I mean, I had such a hard time as a redhead, and one that felt skinny and goofy, and I had really crooked teeth that I didn't get braces until I was older. And so I can't imagine trying to negotiate that with having like profile on 3 or 4 different social media platforms. And we don't know how to do that. And we don't know how to parent that very well.
Yeah.
And this movie becomes a real treatise on how not to do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's really, profoundly important in that sense.
I think the message is, you are of worth, you are enough. And I think it's tricky, right? Because, we'll see, maybe you see pictures of people who have had a lot of things done. And I hear a lot of comments like, oh my goodness, that doesn't look very good, or you can tell that's happened, or why are you doing that? And I think that's just as shaming as saying, hey,
yes, it is.
You need some Botox, right?
That's what I mean. We're in a weird world where it's like, now we don't
have the right language. We don't have the right norms.
I literally fret over this. How do I address this? So the young women today aren't convinced to get it done. And also it's okay to naturally age. And then I don't want to offend literally everyone around me as getting it. And so I just have really wrestled with, how do I actually talk about this? So I've settled on, I need to just talk from where I'm not here to offend anyone, but also
judge
my truth
or say what's right or wrong.
And I think that's awesome.
Exactly.
I think that's perfect, right? It's focusing on the individual, not on what's going on, what they're doing. I think we oftentimes go straight to action or behavior, and we try to address that before we try to heal the self-view. We try to heal the self-rhetoric. And I think that that's so important in this, really in this day and age with social media, is to focus on the you are enough, no matter what they're doing. You're enough. Yeah. And from a spiritual standpoint, I firmly believe everyone has infinite worth, regardless of a choice they make. And I think that's the message, that if we can believe more, then I think naturally we'll make choices that wouldn't be as shaming or self-dangerous or harmful
or hateful.
And yes, thank you.
Yeah, and it's complicated too, because choices do matter, because they do affect other people. And I believe there are wrong choices. And, you know, I'm not a person that thinks everything is okay. So it's a really complicated conversation.
And I think that's where we need to have clarification. Choices aren't you.
Sure.
Choices are choices. Actions are actions.
Yeah.
And we need to have, I think, better clarification of that and what that means, because too often do I make a choice and then I live in the regret of that choice and define myself by that choice. But I am not that choice. I am someone worth more than I can even imagine.
And
also,
it's, oh, sorry, you go, Paige.
I was going to say, I love that you're focusing in on choice. That's really helped me with how I'm going to talk with my teenagers. I find unsolicited comments just in general, being a human, so fascinating. Like, people have said the worst, strangest things to me over the years. And
especially over social media. They'll say whatever.
Yeah, or even to my face.
They'll be their worst. They'll be their absolute. I mean, there's the degradation of society and humanity that I'll just anonymously or not anonymously say the most horrible, mean, terrible things that you would never say to somebody's face. And that's the thing that's really complicated about social media. And I think we haven't figured out, like, we haven't developed mores. You know, there's certain things that just people aren't confident to be that mean, even face to face. But for whatever reason, social media and the layers that it creates between us and people, we somehow find I can't come up with the right word, power, a negative power, a darker power to kind of say things that we just really couldn't look in somebody's eyes and say, you know, if we have a moral compass.
I feel like we also haven't really conquered the tools of, like, teaching our youth or even adults. I mean, I work with a lot of adults where they don't have the tools. Clearly, that's why they come to you guys, to move past what things have been said to their face even. And so just the deeper level of social media, but things being said, like, I've had so many things said to my face and on social media, but it's hard to move past that and not believe it, start believing it's just rolling through your head. And so, and I'm a big believer in positive script and positive affirmations, and I really try and teach all the teenagers that I get close to, like, this is such an important tool that you need in your life. But throughout my years, I mean, I feel like I could write a book on what people have just said to me about my physical appearance that I could easily be believing today. And it's so horrible. And so I just kind of wish that there was, I don't know, I wish that there was like a baseline even at school of how do you handle negative, unsolicited comments
And this is where I would jump in is I think it's really a waste of emotional energy to spend a great deal of time on the idea of the bully, right? It's not okay.
Yeah.
And we absolutely should teach our children in our society to be appropriate and empathetic and considerate. But you're going to have, you know, the mothers of this world that we see in Penelope are out there, right? And so I think the greater area of focus for ourselves and for others around us is to cultivate resilience and teach resilience, because you can't stop people from saying mean. If you want to live in a free society, which we all do, you can't stop people from saying mean things or doing mean things. The most you can do is cultivate resilience, because if you have resilience and are connected with your own sense of self-worth, like Penelope has and develops, then it's mean and you're taken aback by the fact that somebody could actually say it. But if you have if you've negotiated your sense of self-worth, it falls off you, it bounces off of you, and you don't let it define you. If you don't know who you are, then you become vexed by it, because bigger than the tragedy of hearing somebody say horrible and mean things to you is the experiences that you have that are traumatic, that you internalize your own voice in a negative, self-hating way. And if that voice is there, then even if people say incredibly wonderful and positive things, they don't stick, right?
Yeah.
We're the ones that decide what perforates in or comes through and perforates our soul, and we take it up or we don't. We're the ones that decide. Nobody else can decide. And it's not okay to hate. It's not okay to be mean. I'm not giving anybody a pass on those things, but it's not going to go away. Like, it's not going to go away. And to focus our energy and attention on that, not that it doesn't deserve some, I think we're misappropriating the place that we can help people the most, which is what we see in this show of her internalizing and self-accepting.
Sure. This is an important point, this idea of being securely attached ourselves, right? So having secure attachment, having a resilience to things. I think the more that we're securely attached, the easier it is to see that when someone is bullying, it's not about me, it's about the pain that they're experiencing. And what results from that is love, and love heals, right? Love creates connection and breeds connection. And I think that when we focus on bullying, maybe the focus ought to be on the pain and the hurt in healing
and it takes
the bully, in addition to strengthening and building secure attachment and resilience with those that are bullying, and it takes being bullied. Sorry.
And it takes a ton of emotional health and compassion to be able to do that. Like, Michael's manifested all of this compassion towards the mother. And that is a tall order, because that takes such insane emotional maturity to realize that somebody that's being that awful, unconsciously awful, like this mother, is because she's so damaged, which is something I really wanted to talk before we're out of time about this movie, is this generational feel, right? The idea of the family curse being handed down, that like jumped out at my marriage and family therapy systemic training. Like, it's so true that all of us inherit curses, from our families of origin. And one of the things that this story is about a girl developing into a woman that is able to transcend and break the curse, which I think is just a powerful metaphor to look at and consider, right? Because to this point that I was trying to make about developing and focusing on resilience, like, that's the greatest opportunity that we have to break the curses of our mortal experience, or our traumatic experiences, is to discover and connect with and attach with the truth of the value that we have, hopefully through relationships and friendships, marriage opportunity. I mean, my marriage has been probably the most, and is the most, healing relationship, because my wife has been so consistently kind and loving and forgiving to me. Other relationships, like my relationship with Michael, also add to that healing and love, or like Scott or Britton or Alicia, these people that I just adore, because they're good people that can look past and forgive and help us. And I just think it's such a cool message, because the father at one point too has his moment of shame where he's like, well, it's my family, it's my curse, I did this to her. And it's just so, and we feel that as parents, you know what I mean? Well, and that's such an important, powerful thing to recognize and work through.
And I think that the movie did such a great job in this, in portraying this generational curse is really just generational trauma of inadequacy and shame that's being passed down. And that pain comes straight through. And so it's so interesting, because the mom, right, is not, she's not blood, right? It's the dad, right? And that's what causes him to say that. But she is just as much wrapped up into that generational trauma.
Yeah, her dad married the same great grandmother, right? Because the curse came because of the judgment of some, poor person's kids. You know what I mean? And so
I think it just portrays so well to each of us how our families, every family has generational trauma, and it's not about being bad or good, right? And I think that's where it's hard, because you see this mom as bad. It's not about bad or good. It's about pain, and it's about healing or passing on the trauma. And if we can learn to see the difference or to recognize the difference, I think that we can start as our own selves to maybe break that generational trauma. But we have to see it as not good or bad, because if I look at the way I act, I automatically think I'm a bad father, I'm a horrible father, and that gets me stuck in the shame. So I have to recognize that, at least in my own mind, I have to recognize that as a decision that I made, not me, but a choice I made that I can learn and grow from, that I can progress from.
And it can be a misinformed choice,
sure,
or it could be a
course.
good choice, which is the opportunity that we have to realize that the choices are us acting out, trying to figure out what the right things are, and the transformation that happens with our character as we learn truth, apply, experiment with truth, fail at it, feel the failure of it, take accountability and responsibility for the choices, differentiate the choices from who we are, and learn to act out.
In that way, all choices, if we're learning and growing from them, are good choices because they lead to our progression. And I think that's where we oftentimes have a breakup or a breakthrough, is when we can recognize that good or bad really is kind of not there. It's more so, am I learning and progressing, or am I not?
Yeah.
And I think that can dissolve the shame and help us to progress forward, because shame stagnates us and prevents us from learning and growing. And learning and growing is progression. And so that's what I try to do oftentimes with my clients, is help them understand, hey, I get there's good and bad choices, but maybe we can reframe that to, am I learning from the choice or not? And then if I'm learning, then all things come to my benefit and growth. They're good things in my life. And that can be a hard concept, I think, for us to grab hold of.
Yeah. I love that you brought up the father really quickly. Cause I think that scene is so comical and yet so deep. It's so interesting how they balanced both of those things. But I also found it so interesting just to watch the father throughout it. Like I wasn't really sure if he supported the mom, but he went along with it, but he was quiet. And so then I just found you could tell he was carrying this heavy burden and he did not know what to do with it. And so he was silent, and that happens so much in our life. And then another point, just really quickly, I love her rebellion. Like when she just openly rebels and does what she wants.
Yeah, that's
like
fun.
That brings my heart so much joy. And I loved watching her do all the things she dreamed about doing. And
well, the thing that's really cool about that rebellion too is that she funds her rebellion through the embrace, by embracing her pig nose and being like, I'll be the one that sells you the picture. I'll take that money. It's my money. If you want my picture, you might as well give me that money. And then that becomes the fuel for her to have the freedom to go out into the world, which is a really cool, deep point.
What a beautiful message is that if we can love and accept ourselves, how much it does to affect those around us. You know, we saw the journalist, right? He had a change of heart. We saw the boyfriend, or Max, have a change of heart, right? And we
I would say the dad.
Have a change of heart. She
doesn't
has
grow.
that comical thing that she says at the end, right?
Yeah.
And the dad change. But what a beautiful message to say, hey, if we can accept ourselves, not only do we progress, but we impact the opportunity of all those around us progression.
Yeah. Love it. It's so great. I'm so glad.
Thanks, Paige.
Watched it.
What a good show.
Yeah,
good reminder. A lot of good messages, a lot more things to talk about for that show. But Paige, thanks so much for joining us and sharing your fashion sense and thoughts and getting us digging into this one. We'll definitely have to do it again sometime. So.
Awesome. I would love that. Thank you so much. You guys are so fun to talk to.
Oh, thanks all for joining.
All right, come and listen again, like, share, tell us what movies you want to hear from, or suggest people for us to talk with. We're open.